Hello, everyone. Welcome and thank you for joining us for this webinar today. And more importantly, thank you for volunteering with Angel Flight West. We're excited to have you as part of the Angel Flight flying family. And thank you for your desire to give back and help others with your passion for aviation and for flying and your skill to do so. And most importantly, your time. My name is Josh Wilson. I'm the Executive Director of Angel Flight West. I started out as a volunteer with Angel Flight West almost 20 years ago. I came from an advertising entertainment industry background and would volunteer at Angel Flight and quickly fell in love with its mission. Being a third generation aviator, I've always loved aviation. And then seeing the impact that it can make on other people's life was a quick sell for me on how important it is to give back charitably using aviation. And so started working for Angel Flight and have been executive director now for about 5 years. And as you likely know, transportation to healthcare is a huge barrier for patients across our country and across our world. In fact, it's the biggest barrier to accessing health only after cost. And Angel Flight West provides a unique niche to remove that barrier and create a bridge from home to health using our resources with our volunteer pilots and our volunteer drivers. And what we really are is the platform that enables that. And the most important part of that equation and family to eliminate that transportation barrier is our volunteer pilots. So thank you. You're going to meet several of our staff today. Sherry Simarusti is our Director of Mission Operations. Rich Pickett, you're going to meet Rich Pickett is our Director of Safety. We have a volunteer pilot that you'll hear from named Tony, and you'll be able to ask questions of any of us. For those of you who aren't familiar with Zoom, and during this pandemic, I'm sure most people have become all too familiar, but we would encourage at the bar below, if you just hover your mouse over there, you'll see a button for Q&A. Please type any questions for any one of the panelists in that Q&A, and we'll have some time at the end to answer it. If we run out of time, we will also answer that afterwards, and we'll be sending both a recap and a recording of this webinar for future use at that time as well. So please don't be shy, ask questions. We love those. And then I'd also encourage you just to go ahead and open your Zoom webinar chat. We'll, as you probably saw when those opening slides were going, we will update you with important information, links, that kind of thing for follow-up. So I would welcome you to open that up. And then just on a separate situation, I just want to wish you all well and hope you and your families are doing are being safe and healthy. This is an unprecedented, unsettling time for sure, and Angel Flight is fortunate to help be part of that solution. I'm going to go a little bit more into depth in terms of what Angel Flight is doing there to kick us off, but I'll just outline today's webinar quickly. We will go through the current situation of Angel Flight West, the missions we're flying, the missions we're not, et cetera. We will equip you with the appropriate ways to find flights that you're interested in flying, what to expect on those flights. Well, safety is always our top priority. So we'll talk in depth about personal minimums and canceling your flights whenever. And then, as I mentioned, we'll have questions. But before we get into that, I just want to talk a little bit about our current situation. Then I'll also talk about our staff and how we work. But to start, as you probably have seen in the communications for those of you who've signed up during the pandemic, we are still flying PPE and cargo flights. We are also arranging flights for healthcare heroes that are working on the front lines. For our passenger flights, we are resuming those flights this week. This coming Monday. And what we're doing to start those flights is we are doing some more intense screening from the passenger side, and our medical release and documents and screening questions that our coordination team goes through reflects the inherent risk of COVID, and the risk benefit that our healthcare partners are already doing. And then on the pilot side, we're making sure that we can inform you of all those risks and the best way to mitigate those and have some processes in place for that too. There is, if you want to go more in depth on those or haven't seen our other webinars, you can see at the bottom of this page, there is a link and it'll be dropped here in the chat shortly that you can visit that has webinars that explain the thought process and the decision-making behind the new procedures. It's in that link below, including webinars with an infectious disease expert that's one of our volunteer pilots, lots of questions for our safety officer that you'll hear from later, and information from our healthcare partners that have helped inform all those decisions, as well as the regulatory agencies. So that's how we're moving forward, and I encourage you to visit those links, and there'll be an email that outlines that going out today as well if you haven't already received it. So welcome questions on that at the end, but real quickly, because we thank you for signing up. We had an unusual number of signups during the pandemic, which is encouraging in these unsettling times where we've got both the pandemic and protests and everything else going on. We feel you, we feel the same way. We want to be part of the solution. So we thank you for volunteering and signing up. And the goal of this webinar is really to get you plugged in and doing what you desire to do, which is help other people. And so it helps to understand a little bit of the overview. And I know some of this was covered in the orientation, but I'll go through our organization chart and how we work. If you picture Uber, I think is a good analogy for Angel Flight, right? So Uber has technology and a platform that requires staff and technology to plug in a bunch of registered drivers that are contractors with people that need to go from point A to point B, and they match those up. Well, Angel Flight is the same thing. We are a technology platform. We've got a website and app that arranges the transportation. We've got a group of volunteer pilots that want to fly, and we have a group of patients that want to get from point A to point B and that have been vetted by this platform, and we just plug them together all day. And so over the last couple of years, we're flying about 5,000 flights a year, so 15 to 20 flights a day. And we're arranging those, and we're available at every step of that way. You know, unlike Uber, who tries to drive you to the FAQs all the time, we have a real live staff that will answer the phone at any time, will answer an email at any time. So anytime you have a question, a suggestion, feedback, we want to hear from it. Same thing, even, you know, after your flights, you'll hear from Rich. You know, we want to create a culture of safety. So we want to know everything that you encounter during that might help someone else with their flight, whether the passenger showed up with too much luggage, whether there was an incident with a plane, there was a runway that you weren't expecting, whatever that case might be. We welcome that feedback. And as you can see below here, we are a small team. And so we rely heavily on volunteers. We've always been a volunteer-driven organization, want to continue to do so. And so we welcome you as part of the village. And it does take a village to do what we do, but we've got a pretty awesome village filled with great people like yourselves. So just real quickly here, we're a 501c3 nonprofit. So we've got a board of directors that handles our policy and fiduciary responsibilities and legal responsibilities of the organization. They are my boss. I'm the executive director, Josh Olson. We've got an executive team here that you'll hear in a little bit. Our director of mission operation is Sherry Simarusti. She has a coordination team that has 4 or 5, depending on the time of year and the intern situation we have going on. Those people that you'll hear a lot from and probably already have heard a lot from is Anne, Isabel, Alejandro, and John. Our director of development is Mary Hunter. She has Kathleen, who's our chief grant writer, and Henny and Carolyn, who are development associates. They work on the fundraising, so that platform of staff, technology, and space costs us about $1.5 million a year. So we rely on fundraisers, individual donations, foundation grants, et cetera, to keep that platform running and keep us available to continue to scale and grow and arrange more flights for those who need us. We have a director of outreach named Ivan. His primary responsibility is working with our local wing leaders and wing teams on outreach initiatives That's many of you signed up as a volunteer because you saw an ad on social media, or you heard from a friend, or you read a story about us. That is what Ivan and his team does. We do have some financial services that we contract with. Rafe Perry is our CFO, and Daphne Cooper. They make sure that we're operating within the guidelines of a 501c3, doing accounts payable, receivable, those types of things. Our CTO is Stefan Fopiano. Many of you are already familiar with AFIDS, Angel Flight Information Database System, where we sign up for flights and arrange our flights and arrange our orientations. He manages that with some developers overseas. And then our safety officer I alluded to earlier, Rich Pickett, and the wing safety officers that help him in the different states that we operate in. And they're managing our safety management system for the organization. So that's the team, that's how we work. It's my pleasure to introduce Sherry Cimarusti, who you'll get to know really well as a volunteer command pilot. She has been with the organization a long time, and it really bleeds Angel Flight West. She's kind of the heart of the organization. So I'll turn it over to her to capably guide you through how to volunteer first and what to expect. Sherry, take us away.
Thank you, Josh. So welcome to everybody here. I see we've got a good group on. Some of you are longtime command pilots, and many of you have never flown a mission. So I hope for those that have been around a while, you'll learn something new, and we hope to help educate those of you that are brand new to the organization. As Josh said, I've been around a while. I've been here going on 23 years now, taken on a lot of, worn a lot of different hats around the organization. I'm proud now to lead the team that Josh mentioned to you earlier. Going to go through what it's like to fly missions today, and I'm going to have the help of Tony, who has flown some missions for us, and Rich, who will talk to you about safety, and Stefan, who will be here to answer your tech questions. So first thing I want to bring up is anxiety about your first mission. That's actually quite common. We hear it a lot from pilots who are not comfortable flying their first mission. They've flown a lot on their own. I want to tell you that this is not unlike flying your neighbor, and we understand that you are taking on the responsibility of somebody who is sick or a family member who is traveling with that person. We are there to answer any of the questions you have, and I do know that once you do that first mission, you will be hooked and will be looking forward to flying many more. Please reach out to the staff or your wing leader if you have any questions about that. We're always around to help out. Next slide. There are three ways, main ways anyway, to find what your missions, the missions that you're looking for. The mobile app, if you don't have it, you can download it from the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store. The VPOIDS or AFIDS website, and your missions available email. Next. Some of the considerations that you'll want to think about when you're looking at missions are the number of passengers and the weight that you can accommodate in your aircraft, the routing, flying in or out of your home base. Sometimes we'll have missions in and out of your home base, other times we won't. Some of those origins and destinations may be close to your home base, and you can always give us a call and see if we can make arrangements to help get that passenger to you. Some pilots don't mind making those extra stops, and others prefer not to do it. Terrain consideration. So Angel Flight West, as you know, covers the 12 western states. There are a lot of mountains in the areas, a lot of deserts to think about. So we want you to accept missions that are comfortable for your flying. Multi-leg missions. Some of our missions go up to 900 miles. None of those are over a 300-mile leg. So, for example, a mission might be going to Kalispell to Seattle. That's a long way. So we break that down with one pilot picking up in Kalispell, taking it to Spokane, and a second pilot flying it on into Seattle. Some people like those, others don't. The mobile app is one way that you can look at available missions. More and more pilots are starting to use that. And you can search on your mobile app available missions list by date, by location, the airport, or by your wing. Next. You'll get an available mission email twice a week if you sign up for that. They go out on Monday nights and Thursday nights. These are pretty handy. A lot of pilots like to use these. One of the things that many pilots ask us about is the efficiency calculation. That's based on your home base airport and the origin and destination airports. So the higher the efficiency number, the more efficient it will be for your airplane. To make those more efficient, you can update in your account settings a lot of your preferences. That will help us to know what kind of missions that you like to fly. You can bookmark or save a mission by clicking on the little heart that you'll see, and that will just give you that'll be like a placeholder, so you can go back to it later. Perhaps you're looking at it at work and don't want to be able to request until you get home. You can bookmark it and it'll show up when you get back home again. You can rate the missions on a star basis, 1 to 5. 1 meaning I would not like to fly this kind of mission, and 5 meaning this is perfect for me. That will help us in the future sort of tailor the missions towards you. You're going to submit a request through the app or using the website. Once you do that, the staff will get it, they will process it, send you the available, all the information that you need. You can also call our office at any time to request a mission if you'd like. Oftentimes pilots will do that if they have changes that they want to suggest, switching to another airport, changing the timing, changing a relay point, or if you want to fly multiple legs of a mission. Please call us. We'd love to hear from you. This is the operations staff. As you can see, we did this picture after we all went to our homes and we're on Zoom. So it's a screenshot, and you see Isabel, myself, Anne, Alejandro, John, and Ivan, who helps us with our outreach. Next. I mentioned requesting changes. We always ask that you do that if you see something you want to do. Passengers can be flexible. We will work with you, the passengers, and the requesting agency to make those things happen. We do ask that you request a flight as soon as possible. So especially in the Pacific Northwest, we know that there are times when weather might be a concern. We ask that you go ahead and request that mission early with the understanding that weather would cancel the flight. Passengers are told they need to have a backup plan, but it does ease their anxiety if they know that someone has taken the flight in case the weather is good. Canceling a mission, and you'll hear this again from everybody, but please know that anytime you need to cancel a mission, first contact the passenger and let them know, and then call our office. If you need help or would prefer not to cancel with the passenger, please call us and we'll happy to do that for you. If it's after hours, you call our number and you will be directed to an 800 number that will be connected to the coordinator on call. Please know, again, cancellations, no matter when we get them, no matter what the circumstances, no matter what reason you give us, are never an inconvenience or a bother, and you will never be second guessed. Passengers are aware they need a backup plan, and in many cases, we can help. Help us help you. You can do that by going to your account settings and updating your profile. There's many preferences there you can click on. Your availability, you can rate and save mission legs. Make sure you sign up for the available missions email. You can sign up for getting SMS messages and mission emails. These all help us reach out to you, especially if we're getting close to the day of a mission and we don't have a pilot yet. Please reply to those SMS messages or our emails with feedback such as there's bad weather in the area or you think the mission is too heavy, a variety of things like that. That feedback is helpful to us, and it may help us go back to the passenger and work on their backup plan earlier. Once you've been assigned a mission, you will get the itinerary. You can look at it in your app or in VPOIDS or APHIDS under My Missions. You'll also get an email from us. We ask that you contact the passenger as soon as you get the mission form, even if it's a week away or 2 weeks away. That helps put their mind at ease knowing that they've got a pilot. You can talk to them later on as you get closer to the date to make sure you arrange the timing and the meeting location. Make sure on the day of your flight that you have your mission assistant, the passenger, and any companions sign the waiver of liability. You can do that through a link in the app, the link provided in your My Missions, or you'll receive an email called Your Mission Today, and that will have the link in it as well. Make sure you sign your affirmation portion, and always have a paper copy available with you and a stamped pre-addressed envelope, just in case there's an issue with the internet connection. And at this time, I'd like to introduce one of our frequent flying pilots, Tony Schwartz, and I promise he and his co-pilot and passenger on the day of this flight did not coordinate their plaid shirts.
Good afternoon. Thanks for this. I'm actually honored, believe it or not, because I don't know why they picked me. I'm not the highest traveling pilot, but that's okay. The picture you're looking at actually is a real favorite. The gentleman in the middle, Brian Jones, is based in Mammoth Lakes. He has severe issues, but he is the nicest person you've ever come across. And I think I've flown him 3 or 4 times now, and he's just, it's so gratifying to be able to take him over to City of Hope in this case. What I want to say about Angel Flight, though, I started with them about 3.5 years ago, and I did my first mission with a fellow that was flying to Las Vegas in a twin Cessna 310. And you know, it was seeing it and experiencing it. It was quick to realize that this was a great thing to do. I like to contribute to causes, but I have to tell you, when you contribute to this cause, you know exactly where every dollar of your money is going. And that's very gratifying. There's a lot of agencies that you send your money in and you really don't know what they're doing with it. And this is one of these opportunities where you know exactly what's going on, and you get the satisfaction of seeing the people who are benefiting. And of course, I love to fly, and so this is a great alternative to going for the so-called $100 hamburger. It's way better. Talking about Angel Flight, though, what I've come to know now over the last few years is this is a really professional organization, very much in the culture of the aviation community. They do everything right. They're very careful about what they do. They're cautious and safety conscious. So there's no issue there. But at the same time, they're very informal, and it's very easy to contact them, to talk to them. The people who answer the phone, every one of them are really good at what they do. They understand what our needs are, and they are very creative in coming up with solutions when there needs to be changes made or other arrangements made for a flight because I can't make it. And I really admire them, all of them. Right on. I mean, Josh is just a phone call away, but so is everybody else, and it's very encouraging. I talked to you about my favorite pilot or my favorite passenger, and you get to see a picture of him here. As for safety, what they said about canceling or modifying trips is absolutely correct, and they are available 24 hours. I don't know, I think Sherry may never sleep, but we won't talk about that. But all of them are there. If you have personal minimums that are outside of the professional minimums, if you will, or the stated minimums, there's absolutely no problem with that. Clearly, turbulence is something to bear in mind. Most of these passengers, practically all of them, are people who are stable. You're not taking people who are, you know, are really in a critical state. We don't do emergency flights. That's not what we're here for. And they're easy to get along with. And many of them are just thrilled with the opportunity of getting a flight. One more thing I want to say is that a lot of the people I've flown, and they're from various places, out in the San Joaquin Valley, it's interesting that the treatment they were getting in the San Joaquin Valley just didn't meet their needs. It wasn't helping them, and they come to Los Angeles, go to City of Hope or UCLA, and it makes a world of difference for them. And it's really nice to hear those kind of stories. With that, I just want to thank you all for the opportunity to talking about this. I'm more than happy to contact any of you individually. You can call the office and they will give you my phone number, I'm sure, or my email. I don't want to take your time with that just now. I now want to introduce Mr. Pickett, Rich Pickett. He is our safety officer, and he will take you down some discussion on our safety procedures and policies. Thank you very much.
So am I on now? Are you guys ready? Okay. Hi, I'm Rich Pickett, the safety officer for Angel Flight. I've been a volunteer for a long time, and I appreciate all of our pilots and Earth Angels. So as Tony mentioned, we've got an interesting program here where you have an opportunity to help a lot of people. I'll echo some of the things that Josh and Sherry mentioned, as well as Tony, is that we don't do critical flights. So if you ever have any question about safety, just call up, and they can always make other arrangements with the coordination staff and mission staff at Angel Flight West. As resources, we have a number of different things that are available to help you. We have wing leaders across all areas from Colorado to Hawaii that can help you with information. And most of our wings also have safety officers. All these are volunteers who can help answer your questions about flights, maybe give you some ideas, or if you have any safety issues, please fill out the mission report or contact one of the safety officers or myself or the wing leaders. In a couple of our wings, we also have chief pilots who also help out with safety and other questions. And also all of us are willing to, especially on your first flight, to help you with any questions you may have. And there are a number of Angel Flight pilots out there, and probably at your local airport anyway, that can also help you and maybe even go along on one of your flights. We are starting back up, as Josh said. We've spent a lot of time with the resumption plan, which is being sent out to everybody here. And within that, there's information about how to mitigate the risk within COVID-19. I was in the hospital for 17 days in April, virtually the entire month on the ventilator and so forth, so I can empathize with the virus and what happens. And then I'm just really excited to know that we can offer flights again. It won't fit everybody's profile, risk profile, but for those who want to do it, both the pilots and the Earth Angels, it's a great benefit for those patients that we need to transport and who need to go through their treatment. Some of the other things that we have, as Sherry said, every passenger has a backup plan. So don't worry about that, no matter what the reason you call, and they'll take care of things. The concerns, we have weather, especially if you're a VFR pilot, even if IFR pilot. I fly IFR in my Cirrus and my Eclipse. I don't take the Cirrus and things, I take the Eclipse. And the same thing with other folks, be careful about that. And as Tony mentioned, turbulence, so forth, watch out for those things. We have AirMets and SIGMETs, and we have alert systems that help that. And then weight, well, I'm going to write another little newsletter here about that extra box, just one more box from recent experiences with me with passengers. We try to be very, very careful about the weight. And so far, in all the years I've been doing this, the Angel Flight staff has been very good with telling our passengers how much weight to bring, and it's usually been very accurate. So that helps. But remember, the summer's coming along and we have density altitude issues. So take those into concern. And if they're, like as Sherry said, we love people to sort of say, hey, I'll take those missions. And then if something comes up, they'll reset. So thank you. And if you have any other questions, please let us know. I also send out newsletters occasionally. I just did one on the information on the FAA extensions of medical certificates, as well as flight reviews, et cetera, and did one about a month ago on stabilized approaches. So I'm happy to get those too in case you didn't have those during the onboarding process. So if there's anything else, I'll turn it back over to our coordinators here.
Thanks, Rich. Appreciate it. And thanks all. Several questions are coming in, but yeah, please feel free to click Q&A and ask questions. As we started this out, you know, our goal is to help you fly your first flight. So I'm seeing a lot of questions come in around those. And obviously this is a unique time in Angel Flight to be operating within COVID. And so I've got one of those, and we'll get to that here in a little bit. And I dropped the link into the Q&A, but I'll have Rich speak to it as well. But Rich, first question I'm going to direct to you from Brad. He says, regarding desert or mountainous flying, are there any Angel Flight West recommendations for equipment to carry?
We don't have any specific requirement or recommendations. There are some great places on the web that offer suggestions for aircraft. If you're going across desert areas, of course, I always make sure I have extra water in the plane, just in case, because that's one of the big issues if something would happen. Generally, I just take a minimal sort of survival kit in my planes that have a little bit of medical supplies in it. My clips, I always carry a first aid kit. I try to carry that in the other planes as well. So those are the things that I do. And you don't have to go overboard typically with these because our flights aren't that long. But you can look like a number of resources or reach out to me. I'll give you some suggestions. Happy to do that.
Great. Thanks, Rich. Sherry, next question for you from an anonymous attendee. Is there an order to how the coordination team posts a flight? Like, do you post it on email first, then SMS, then app? Will you talk a little bit about how it's posted, how people find it, and how you ask and communicate those flights?
Sure. So first, those go right out onto our available missions list. As soon as we post a mission, it becomes visible to all of the pilots when they're logged in to look at available missions. Depending on the lead time we have on a flight, sometimes we'll leave it out just on available missions without doing any other proactive things to find a pilot. If it's a short time, we may start putting out emails right away. Generally about 2 or 3 days before a flight, if it hasn't been filled, you'll start to see emails from the coordinators asking for someone to take a mission. And then the SMS messages, text messages will come out more often than not. We use those the day before, sometimes 2 days before, if we're trying to fill a multi-leg mission. So they're up there at all times, and the moment we do the intake, they become available for everyone to see on the available missions list.
Great. Thank you, Sherry. We've had a couple more come in. So Rich, I'll have you talk now to, and Henny, if you could drop in the chat the COVID-19 response and what our recommended protocols are moving forward. Rich, do you want to just speak to that real briefly? I know we did a whole other, by the way, there's a whole other webinar in that link that talks specifically about this with Rich and an infectious disease expert that goes through all that protocol. And we're sending out the updated forms and so forth that will associate that today. But Rich, do you want to talk a little bit about what we're asking volunteer pilots to do during COVID flights?
Sure, I'm happy to, Josh. We actually started the process, to let you know how long we've been thinking about this, in early March, and about the process about how we do this when we're able to resume the flights. We've worked with a number of physicians around the country and other resources to determine what would be an appropriate SOP, as Sanjay asked on the Q&A. And so we've developed several things. So in terms of flying, we developed, there's about a 3-page document that Josh will link to in his email blast that's going out to folks tonight. You might get it in tomorrow morning's email about how to proceed. And so what we did is we looked at best practices. We want everybody to sort of evaluate the risk on their own individual needs. And then on that, we have a whole list of things to be able to, for both Earth Angels and pilots, how to mitigate that risk, and includes everything from, how do you take care of wiping down a headset to operations at FBOs, as well as a lot of informational links, including links to 2 doctors' articles. One was Hunter Hansfield, who's helped us a lot at the University of Washington, and Dan Macy's. So we hope you find that informative. As my email's up there, you can always reach out to me if you have any questions. And as I said, you'll get this communication from Josh coming out here shortly from Angel Flight about some of those procedures.
Thanks, Rich, and thanks for the question, Sanjay and others on that. Sherry, question for you from Ken Newberry. Is there any way a pilot can see pilot comments from a previous flight? He's asking because he feels like it would be helpful to know if the passenger is nervous, talkative, etc.
Yeah, that's a great question, Ken. We don't really have anything set up about that yet, although there are some ways for you to ask the staff those questions through the available missions list, using the link there to talk to the staff or other pilots that might be looking at that mission. We are considering, and maybe Stefan could speak to that a little bit, because I think a lot of pilots would be interested in that. We are looking into a pilot blog, or sort of I guess a blog site where pilots can communicate with each other, which would be a good place to do that. But I do suggest in the meantime, once again, hate to sound like a broken record, but you can certainly always contact the staff at the office. Call us at 310-390-2958, or email us at missionsteam@angelflightwest.org, and we'd be happy to answer questions or put you in touch with a prior pilot for a passenger. So it's a good idea, and we'll certainly look into how we can maybe facilitate in the future. And maybe Stefan could speak to the blogs. I'm calling it a blog, Stefan. Sorry if it's the wrong terminology.
Yeah, no, I certainly will. I think that's a great idea, and we do capture feedback from our pilots after the mission, so they have an opportunity to talk to us about what their experience was with the passenger. What Sherry's referring to is a community site, so something maybe you belong to your type association has a forum where you can discuss various issues of interest about airplane type. We're thinking about developing something like that for Angel Flight West as well. It give pilots the ability to communicate directly to each other. And that's certainly a topic among many others that you guys could discuss amongst yourselves. Of course, we love our passengers, and most of the feedback we get from them is good.
Yeah, and I'll just touch on that. For those of you who are yet to fly your first mission, Sherry talked a little bit about what to expect, and sometimes folks are tentative on that first flight. If it's a passenger that flies repeatedly with us, they kind of get it. They know the routine. They could probably fly the plane themselves in many cases because they've done so many of these. But especially for new folks, a lot of folks have often never flown on an airplane before. Some are suffering from chemo brain, or may come from a lower socioeconomic area or a very rural area and just not able to navigate those things. So it's just really helpful for them to have someone to ask questions to and so forth. In general, on the way to treatment, they are super talkative and a little nervous. And on the way home from treatment, they usually sleep the whole way, other than a few opening comments before you start engine. So that's typically the experience that you're going to have. And as much as as Tony can attest to, or Rich or others that have flown missions, 95% of your flights, people are going to be super grateful, and you're going to feel like $100 walking away from it. 5%, you deal with some people that might have some entitlement issues, or they're just really bitter at life because of their healthcare situation. So they might not be the most pleasant people. But I haven't walked a mile in their shoes, so I never try to judge that too. But that is not the common, but it does happen. So I just wanted to make everyone aware of that. And to Sherry's point, if it's your first mission, contact the office, and we'll tell you, where in that realm that person is, and we're happy to help you out there and give you as much information as we know. So this question from Keith, I'll go ahead and take. So Keith Errol is asking if we'd recommend having an assistant on your first mission. And so in normal Angel flight times, I would say absolutely. Tony referred to that earlier. His flight, he flew along right seat in a plane before he flew left seat on his with an experienced pilot, and then vice versa. He often flies with a mission assistant when he flies his missions. During the COVID time, we're trying to observe all the best practices for mitigating the potential virus transmission between asymptomatic people. And so we're recommending, if possible, not to fly with a mission assistant. If you do, someone, from your own family or someone that you're sheltering in place with, just again, to maximize distance and airflow between people and minimize that germ transfer. And so, depending on what, your personal decision-making process, and we respect whatever's the safest decision for you and your family. Maybe you're going to wait until next year, till, the COVID crisis has a little bit more control with vaccines, et cetera. If that's the case in normal times, we would definitely recommend taking a mission assistant whenever possible, and also open to a lot of people are nervous for their first one, so they want to fly with someone else. So yes and no to your question, Keith, if that makes sense.
Josh, I just want to add one quick thing here, and Sherry may be able to expand, is all of the passengers are pretty carefully screened. Sherry and her staff go through a process of finding out a lot about these people before they are accepted as potential passengers. And so by the time we as pilots see them, they have been briefed, and I have a pretty good confidence that they know what those people are about.
Yeah, great point, Tony. Thanks for chiming in. Sherry, do you want to just briefly discuss what goes on in the screening process for passengers and how we're planning to do that for COVID?
Sure. So excluding the COVID piece for a moment, a person who needs transportation for their health care may call us. They may request a flight on our website. And once we get that first contact, we will talk to them about what their needs are, where they're going, why they're going there, why they're looking for Angel Flight assistance as opposed to using their own means, whether that be their own car or buying a commercial ticket. So we try and we screen all of those things first. Many times, a good portion of those times, we get a confirmation from a healthcare provider about the financial need or other compelling need that this passenger has for Angel Flight needs, Angel Flight purposes. Additionally, every passenger who is a patient who flies with us is required to have a medical release that is signed by a physician. The basic piece of it is that they're medically stable, they're ambulatory, and that they can fly in a small non-pressurized aircraft. There's some other qualifications we put in there about not having seizure conditions that would impact the safety of the flight. There's some seizures that wouldn't, without not having somebody who is combative, suicidal. So we go through all of that process, and then we do a briefing with each passenger, talking to them about the small aircraft, explaining that saying small aircraft does not necessarily get that across to people, because when you say small aircraft, you'll inevitably get the person that says, oh, I know, I was in an airplane once that only had 28 seats, and we have to sort of temper their expectations there, that we're looking more like 4 to 6 seats and not 28 seats. So we've gone through all of that. We talk to them about their need for a backup plan, and sometimes they may not have the financial means or something else for that. So we talk to them about communicating with their healthcare provider, about being able to reschedule. We do have a fund where we can occasionally book a commercial ticket for them or buy them a bus ticket. In a few cases, we've even paid for a long distance Uber or Lyft. So by the time they get to you, all of those things have transpired, and we hope that that will help make your experience always a positive one.
Great, thanks, Sherry. Bruce Polton, great to see your name. He says he's a long-lapse command pilot, but I want to restart. What actions do I need to take to become an active pilot? You want to address that, Sherry?
Sure. Sure. So you really don't need to do anything. You can become a command pilot again. However, if it's been a really long time since you've flown a mission, we would suggest that you get in touch with John Jerebick, and he's John J at angelflightwest.org. Or any one of our staff actually, and we can direct you to the training site, which will go through the current orientation, make sure you know all of the ways that AFIDS works now, the electronic waiver, which we may not have had when you were flying, or feel free just to call the office and ask some questions to get you updated. But once you're a command pilot, you can start flying again, even if you've taken some time off.
Great, Bruce. Look forward to getting you up in the air again soon. Thank you. Laurel, thank you, first of all, for all the outreach you've been doing in the Pacific Northwest. But your question, can 2 pilots in 1 plane each take a 300-mile leg to complete a double mission? I've had to cancel a mission because we could not find a pilot to take the second leg. Many thanks, Laurel. Sherry, you want to go ahead and take that one too?
Sure, absolutely. So Laurel, just to make clear, if you're talking about 2 Angel Flight West command pilots, each one of you taking responsibility for one of those legs, whether that be financial and also being PIC, absolutely. That would be, similar as to somebody perhaps with a big iron aircraft taking both legs. But if you're both Angel Flight West command pilots, you we're happy to have you each. We would sign you, each one of you, to 1 leg, and then you would communicate with the passenger and fly the mission as normal. I hope that answered your question, and if it didn't, feel free to answer, touch base with me at the office and I can clarify further.
Great, thanks, Sherry. Just typing an answer here on one of the questions. So Rich is new to Angel Flight. He's not flown a mission yet. He desires to fly as co-pilot, VFR, with a mission pilot in Northern California. So I addressed that a little bit earlier. In the current climate, we are discouraging mission assistants for COVID, especially those that aren't in the same household, for the foreseeable future to maximize those distancing. However, with your wing leader, Bob Strawn in Northern California, and John Jerebick that Sherry just mentioned, we'd encourage to reach out to introduce you to some other pilots that when that time might be appropriate to fly along, they can give you a strategy to meet those pilots and find those opportunities. There are several mentor pilots that do like to take a mission assistant along, especially a new member, to fly along with them. So Rich, that would be my recommendation there. And again, Sherry mentioned a couple emails, and Henny, if you can just drop these in, looks like she already does, Sherry C at angelflightwest.org. The whole missions team is missionsteam@angelflightwest.org. The wing leaders are listed on the website, and Rich, in the chat, Henny just put the Northern California wing leader as well. So those are the right folks to connect you with the type of pilot you're looking for. Sanjay, thanks for another question. Expecting seeing an uptick in the number of missions available in the near term. So when we're resuming, what we've heard from our healthcare partners is it's pretty slow. Even though elective surgeries are back open and treatment, the patient's level of comfortability going back to the hospital is pretty low. So in the near term, we actually think it'll be probably a slow trickle of requests. But we do anticipate, and the information that we've gotten again from those same partners is that the level of deferred and delayed treatment will be challenging for patients that are going through it and hospitals and doctors that are treating them. So we do see an uptick in longer term, but not near term. So thanks for the question, Sanjay. David Wallenburn, thanks for your question. Is there still a relationships with Phillips 66 Wings Fuel Program? Yes, indeed. We are proud to sponsor with Phillips 66, and they generously offer through their fuel card $1 rebate for any Angel Flight mission. That information is on our website. So Stefan or Henny, if you guys are handy and want to drop that link in there for David and for the other pilots on the call, it details how the program works and what you need to do to apply that rebate. Basically, they put the cost on the card, you file the paperwork that shows the Angel Flight missions, and then they rebate back $1 per gallon on that card. Raul Easton Carr, do you expect more non-passenger missions in the near future? Raul, that answer is yes. We are continuing with our non-passenger missions. PPE flights continue to go into the Navajo Nation in rural Colorado. They're not going everywhere because what we're doing is not trying to disrupt the apple cart here. A lot of folks are getting, proper distribution chains in place, but we are looking for nonprofit partners where we can help with distribution and logistics, especially in low and no cost PPE production, because that's going to be an ongoing need. We don't have a lot of those currently in California or the Pacific Northwest, for example. But if you know of one, know of another nonprofit that might be doing that, we're happy to help them with those. We're seeing less of those requests because a lot of the time to ramp up and to get those supply distribution chains have found good solutions. But we will continue to do that. And we also expect with some of our blood partners have not been have shut down during COVID too because of volunteers and they're not able to do their remote drives. We expect that to resume too. So those will be other non-passenger missions that we'll be able to fly in the near future. Another question from an anonymous attendee. Should we notify staff if we plan to bring along a family member, even if they are not officially on record with AFW as a mission assistant? Sherry, do you want to take that answer?
You don't need to notify us of that because we don't actually have a way to add them to the record. You can certainly, we would encourage you to have your family member join Angel Flight as well, and then we can officially put them on the flight. But if they don't have not joined Angel Flight, we can't officially put them on. We're happy to always have that happen, and we want to make sure that even if it is a family member, that you have that person sign the waiver of liability as the mission assistant. There's a line on there for mission assistant, and that may be anybody who's flying along, sitting in the right seat or any seat for that matter. So make sure they sign that waiver.
Great, thanks, Sherry. Caleb Taylor, if that's the Caleb Taylor I know, good to hear from you. Thanks for joining us. Caleb's asking, how common are in-flight medical emergencies with passengers? I can take that one. Very uncommon. In fact, I can think of one in the 15 years that I've been arranging Angel flights. But even that one, we kind of knew ahead of time that there may have been a medical emergency. So just so you know, all the flights that we do, one of the criteria is that this is all non-emergency. So all the stuff that Tony and Rich and Sherry said about personal minimums and canceling and the backup plan, that's all true because these aren't emergencies. So this is by no means an air ambulance, and we don't want to put anyone in an aircraft that's going to make it unsafe, and that's why we require the medical release that says so much from a doctor. So that is very uncommon, and you're not going to encounter in-flight medical emergencies with passengers. We haven't talked a lot about the call sign, but you will get some preferential treatment if you decide to use the Angel Flight call sign with some of the controllers and so forth, because they know of the passengers that you have on board. But again, that's not declaration that everything is emergent and you're going to get like a lifeguard handling in the air. These are non-emergency flights, so you're not going to encounter in-flight medical emergencies. Michael McDonald, Sherry, question for you. Are summer camps still planned, and how will those protocols change?
So that's a heartbreaking one for us, Michael. I know you've been around a while, and some of the favorite flights for our pilots are summer camps. For those of you that are new, we fly a lot of camps during the summer for children with special needs, those that are going to camps for kids that are burn survivors, kids who are cancer, those facing life-threatening illnesses, a variety of camps. And they have been a big chunk of our summertime flying. We sometimes fly, we generally fly somewhere between 500 and 700 camp missions a summer. All of the camp facilities that we deal with have canceled their summer camp programs. And so there will be no summer camp missions this year. We're hoping that some of them may replace those with some fall camps if the COVID situation gets better. So stay tuned on that one.
Thanks, Sherry. Stan Swan is asking where he can find a list of mentor pilots in his area. Stan, please email johnj@angelflightwest.org or call at 310-390-2958. Or if you've met your wing leader, they can also plug you in with the right folks too. I'm not sure what area you're in, so that answer would change depending on that, but John would be a great place to start with that one, Stan. Thanks for asking. Ken Newberry, is there a policy or preference about taking two separate passengers or missions that are going in the same direction? It might mean an additional stop for one of the passengers. Sherry, you want to take that one?
Sure. So the answer to that, Ken, is during normal times, we would say no. As a matter of fact, we have some pilots, one who I saw on here earlier, I don't know if he's still on, who is a pro at combining multiple missions. Generally, we will reach out to both sets of passengers to make sure that they're okay with somebody flying along on their trip. So you may take somebody part of the way, pick up someone else, and take them both to a final destination. And we would encourage that. That makes great use of your aircraft. If you've got the room and the weight capability, that's a terrific thing for us. Having said that, during this time of COVID, we would discourage that just because we don't want those extra people in the plane. Certainly don't want to put more people at risk than we have to. So during normal times, and I hope we get back to those soon, yes, we would encourage it, and we'll help arrange that with the passengers to make sure they're all okay with it.
Thanks, Sherry. David Hope is asking, are the non-passenger flights listed in the same place as passenger flights? You want to address that, Sherry, and also about the missions available coming up next week?
They are all listed in the same spot. You'll be able to tell what they are based generally on their name. So, for example, those non-passenger missions that you'll see out there, if you're in Southern California, you might see the LifeStream Blood ones. If you're up in the Pacific Northwest, you'll frequently see those from the Northwest Blood Organization. And the ones that we're currently flying, we're flying PPE or supplies to the Navajo, are named. The other ones you'll see the name of a person. So they're all mixed up together. Though we, as Josh has talked about, and you'll see a communication from him later on this afternoon, coming out announcing that we are resuming passenger flights flown by our private pilots. So starting late this afternoon or early evening, you'll see some available missions come back on the list. I may process some over the weekend, but if not, the team will get to them early Monday morning. So if you are already a command pilot and looking for your first mission, I think we're going to have a lot of eager people. So I suggest you get there and snatch those missions up early before somebody else gets to them. So stay tuned, but they are all combined together. But they're easily, you can easily determine which is a passenger and which is a cargo or supply mission.
Thanks, Sherry. Rich answered a similar question offline, but Michael is asking about the Angel Flight call sign. There is some guidance on the Angel Flight call sign on the website. The ADS-B mismatch is a real thing, so some folks can't change the ADS input out. Even for those that think you can't, I would still recommend contacting the manufacturer, because just because you can't easily do it, there still is a way to make that programmable in many cases. But for those that strictly can't, that means you can't use the Angel Flight call sign because the FAA doesn't want to mismatch. So Michael, you've been flying for a while, so you know that sometimes we used to do first three and then, or NGF and then last three of your tail number. That is no longer acceptable. So we can't do that. And unfortunately, if you can't program the ADS-B, we can't use the Angel Flight call sign. And we don't want any of our pilots' hands slapped by the FAA for that one.
Yeah,
All
and this,
right.
Rich, I just sent a link, an AOPA link on that, as
Oh, great.
Josh said. So, for example, I'm on my Cirrus on the GTX 345. There is a way to reprogram it, but it's kind of a pain. You have to go and do that. And then you have to make sure you change it back because the FAA is getting rather testy about mismatches. On other aircraft I fly, for example, my Eclipse, another one, it's impossible to change it without an avionics technician doing that operation. So check. Otherwise, on all mine, I just use my call sign.
Great. Well, thanks everyone. We just passed the hour, and so I wanted to appreciate your time. Any other questions that were unanswered, we'll again include in a recap of this along with the recording. I want to thank Sherry, Tony, Rich, Stefan, Henny, everyone who is involved in this webinar, and most of all, I want to thank you, our volunteers, for tuning in and for your support and encouragement all the way around through this time. It is really inspiring, and it's easy to get down when you read too much about COVID, or when your colleague like Rich was in the hospital for a long time with COVID, or you got protests that are going outside of your own office here at Angel Flight in Santa Monica. But Angel Flight is part of the solution, and we are climbing above this together. And I feel very fortunate to be part of this family, and look forward to those of you I haven't met in person. Look forward to meeting you hopefully in person soon, but thanks for joining us virtually today. And thanks for volunteering. And we look forward to doing more flights with you. So thanks so much. Have a great weekend.